Imagine a house that doesn't just stand still. It runs. It sprints through the deep, dark forests of Eastern Europe on a pair of colossal scaly chicken legs. It can spin, it can crouch, and it can chase you. And if you're unlucky enough to find it, you'll see the fence surrounding it isn't made of wood. It's built from human bones, topped with skulls whose empty eye sockets glow with an eerie inner fire. The gate has no lock, instead it's a mouth filled with razor-sharp teeth. And the creature that lives inside is infinitely worse. She is known as Baba Yaga, and for over 1,000 years, her name has been whispered by children and adults alike with a unique kind of terror. Because unlike the witches of Western fairy tales, she isn't just evil. She's something far more ancient, far more unpredictable, and far more dangerous. In some stories, she's a cannibalistic monster with a nose so long it touches the ceiling and teeth made of pure iron, who flies through the sky not on a broomstick, but in a giant, levitating mortar, rowing with a pestle and sweeping away her tracks with a broom. She kidnaps and devours children who wander too far into the woods. She is a nightmare given form. But in other stories, she is something else entirely. Lost princes and forgotten heroes stumble upon her walking hut, and instead of being eaten, they are helped. She gives them magical items, impossible advice, the very keys to completing their quests. She is a guardian, a wise woman, a kingmaker. So which is it? Is she a child-eating demon or a divine guide? A villain or a benefactor? That question is the terrifying secret at the heart of this ancient legend. And the answer reveals something profound not just about folklore, but about the very nature of reality, power, and the thin veil that separates our world from the abyss. The truth of who or what Baba Yaga really is more complex and disturbing than you can possibly imagine. To understand her, you first have to understand her name. The word Baba, in many Slavic languages, can mean an old woman, a grandmother, or a hag. It's simple enough. But the word Yaga, that's where the mystery begins. Its origins are fiercely debated by scholars. It has no clear single meaning. It's been linked to words for horror, rage, disease, serpent, and even to an ancient word for to abuse. Her name is, quite literally, the horrifying old woman, or the abusive grandmother. It's a name that doesn't just describe a person. It describes a feeling, the feeling of primal fear. This fear is rooted in the landscape she inhabits, the primeval forest. To the ancient peoples of Eastern Europe, the forest was not a park. It was a place of immense power and peril. It was the edge of the map, the boundary between the village, the world of man, order, and life, and the vast untamed wilderness, the world of chaos, spirits, and death. And Baba Yaga's hut, the one on chicken legs, stands right on that border. It is the gatehouse between the world of the living and the realm of the dead, and she is the gatekeeper. To approach her is to willingly step out of the known world. In one of the most famous tales, a young girl named Vasalisa the Beautiful is sent by her cruel stepmother into the forest to fetch fire from Baba Yaga, a death sentence disguised as a chore. After a terrifying journey, she finds the hut. She sees the fence of bones. She sees the disembodied, glowing hands of riders who represent day, sun, and night. Trembling, she calls out. The forest shakes, the trees groan, and Baba Yaga appears in her mortar, sniffing the air. "I smell a Russian soul," she shrieks. Vasalisa, though terrified, is brave and polite. She explains her quest. Baba Yaga doesn't attack. Instead, she puts Vasalisa to the test. She demands she perform a series of impossible tasks. Separate poppy seeds from dirt, clean every corner of the hut, sort rotten grain from good grain. Failure means death. It means becoming another skull on the fence. But Vasalisa, with the help of a magical doll her mother gave her, completes every task perfectly. And here we see the witch's other face. Impressed by the girl's spirit and purity of heart, Baba Yaga doesn't eat her. Instead, she grants her request. She gives her the fire she came for. But it's no ordinary flame. It's a single skull from her fence, its eyes burning with a magical fire that, when brought home, incinerates the cruel stepmother and her daughters, reducing them to nothing but ash. Vasalisa is freed. The monster has become the savior. This duality is what makes Baba Yaga so different from the witches familiar to an American audience. The Wicked Witch of the West is pure malice. The witches of Salem were tragic victims of hysteria. Baba Yaga is neither. She operates on a logic that is entirely her own. She is not a servant of the devil. She serves no one. She is a force of nature personified. She's the hurricane that destroys a village, but also clears the way for new growth. She's the forest fire that burns everything to the ground but allows the soil to be reborn, richer than before. She doesn't care about good or evil as we understand them. She cares about rules, respect, and strength. She is a test, a trial by fire. When you encounter her, you are not just meeting a witch. You are facing the raw, untamed power of the natural world itself. A world that can kill you in an instant, but also provide you with everything you need to survive, if you are worthy. She strips away everything you are, your name, your status, your strength, and forces you to confront the core of your being. Are you brave? Are you clever? Are you respectful of the powers you do not understand? Her hut is a crucible. Those who enter full of arrogance, greed, or malice are consumed. They are cooked in her oven and their bones are added to her fence. But those who approach with a pure heart, with courage and humility, who endure her trials and prove their worth, they emerge transformed. They leave with a new power, a new wisdom, a new destiny. She is the guardian of transformation. But the price of that transformation is facing the absolute certainty of a gruesome death if you fail. For centuries, this was how the stories were told. They were warnings to children about the dangers of the forest, but they were also guides for navigating the trials of life. They taught that the world outside the village is dangerous and operates by a different set of rules, but that courage and respect can see you through even the darkest of nights. But the stories are much older than the fairy tales we know. The figure of a powerful, dangerous, and wise old woman of the woods predates Christianity in Eastern Europe by thousands of years. The symbols surrounding her, the mortar and pestle, the connection to the forest, her dominion over the elements and the cycle of day and night. These aren't just random, spooky details. They are echoes, faint, distorted memories of a forgotten pagan goddess. A deity who was once worshipped as the mistress of death and the arbiter of life. A wild, untamable goddess of the hunt and the forest, who eventually, over centuries of cultural change, was demoted, twisted, and transformed into the monstrous witch of the fairy tales. The goddess was buried, but her spirit lived on, lurking in the shadows of folklore as Baba Yaga. And uncovering the truth about this ancient deity reveals a power far more real and terrifying than any simple witch. To understand this power, you have to imagine a world before written history, a world steeped in magic, a world where the forest was not just trees, but a living, breathing entity. The earth wasn't just dirt, it was the womb of creation, and presiding over it all was a goddess, not a gentle, benevolent mother figure, but something far more primal. She was the goddess of the life-death rebirth cycle, the one who wove the fates of mortals, who held the power of regeneration in one hand and the finality of death in the other. She was the untamed wild, the cycle of seasons, the raw, unpredictable power of nature itself. But then a new faith arrived. A faith with a single male god, a faith of order, of churches built from stone, and of scriptures written in books. This new religion, Christianity, saw the old ways as a threat. The pagan gods and goddesses couldn't just be ignored. They had to be destroyed. Their sacred groves were chopped down, their idols burned. Their followers were converted, often by force. But how do you kill a goddess who lives in the rustle of every leaf and the heart of every winter storm? You can't. You can't burn an idea. So you do the next best thing. You demonize it. You twist its image so thoroughly that its own followers become afraid of it. And so the great goddess of life and death was dragged from her throne. Her power over birth and regeneration was reframed as dark witchcraft. Her connection to the afterlife was twisted into a ghoulish obsession with the dead. Her wisdom became wicked cunning. Her sacred symbols became monstrous deformities. They took a powerful sovereign female deity and systematically turned her into a hideous child-eating crone. They buried her name and called the monster that remained Baba Yaga. This is why she is so much more than a simple villain. She is a memory, a scar left on the cultural psyche of a people, a ghostly echo of a faith that was violently suppressed. She survived, not in grand temples, but in the one place the new religion couldn't fully control, the fireside story. The cautionary tale told to children. And in those shadows she festered, her image growing more grotesque with each generation. Yet her core power, that ancient primal energy, remained intact. To truly face Baba Yaga, you must first find her. And she does not live in a town or a village. She lives where the maps end. Her domain is the deep, dark, primeval forest, a place that represents the subconscious mind, the unknown, the wild frontier between the world of the living and the realm of the dead. You don't just stumble upon her home. You find it only when you are profoundly lost, either physically or spiritually. When you are at your absolute lowest point, stripped of all comfort and security, that is when you might see it. Rising from a swampy clearing shrouded in mist, is the single most iconic and bizarre dwelling in all of folklore. Her hut. It stands on a pair of colossal chicken legs. And these aren't just stilts carved to look like legs. They are alive. The hut swivels and turns, surveying the forest. It can run faster than any horse, crashing through the ancient woods. This isn't just a whimsical detail. It's a symbol. The hut has no fixed address. It is a gateway, a portal, and it is never in the same place twice. It exists on the threshold of reality. The chicken legs themselves are a link to the old magic. Birds, especially chickens, were often used in divination, seen as messengers between the human world and the spirit world. Her home, therefore, is literally a walking, living oracle, a bridge between worlds. And when a traveler approaches, the hut will only respond to a secret incantation. The hero of the story must say the magic words, little hut, turn your back to the forest and your front to me." Only then will the house creak and groan, the massive legs bending as it lowers itself to the ground, the door swinging open to reveal the darkness within. But before you even reach the door, you have to get past the fence. It's not made of wood. It's a fence of human bones, and atop each post sits a human skull, its empty eye sockets glowing with an eerie inner fire. The gate isn't a gate at all, but a set of powerful human jaws, and the lock is a mouth filled with razor-sharp teeth. This isn't just for show. This is a warning. This is the sacred boundary. It screams to all who approach, turn back. The unworthy are not welcome here. Only those who have stared death in the face, those who are not afraid of their own mortality, may enter. The glowing skulls are the spirits of those who failed her tests, now serving as eternal watchlights, illuminating the price of failure. If you have the courage to pass through this gruesome gate and step inside, you find that the hut is impossibly large. It defies physics, a pocket dimension of its own. And there, sprawled across the interior, is the witch herself. She fills the entire space. Her head is in one corner, her feet in another, and her nose has grown so long it has pushed right through the ceiling. This is the first sight of the monstrous goddess. Her face is a mask of terrifying contradictions. She is ancient, her skin wrinkled like a dried apple, yet her eyes burn with a fierce, ageless intelligence. Her teeth are not bone but iron sharpened to points, strong enough to grind through stone or bone. And then there is her most famous feature, the bony leg. One of her legs is perfectly normal, but the other is nothing but exposed, withered bone from hip to toe. This isn't just a random deformity. It's the key to her entire identity. The fleshy leg stands firmly in the world of the living, while the bony leg is planted squarely in the realm of the dead. She is the eternal guardian of the threshold, a being who exists in two worlds at once. She is life and death embodied in a single terrifying form. She doesn't walk. She doesn't need to. When she leaves her hut, she travels in a way that further cements her mastery over the fundamental forces of nature. She sits in a giant flying mortar, an object traditionally used for grinding grain, for breaking something down to its essential components to create sustenance. It's a symbol of transformation, of the womb, of the feminine power to create. In her right hand she holds the pestle, the heavy tool used for grinding. It is her rudder, her oar, her phallic counterpart to the mortar's womb. With it, she steers her course through the sky. And in her left hand, she carries a common household broom. But she doesn't fly on it. She uses it to sweep away her tracks, to erase any sign that she was ever there. Think about what this means. She commands a vehicle that represents the power to deconstruct and create. She steers it with a symbol of raw masculine force. And she leaves behind absolutely no evidence, moving like a ghost through the world. She is the ultimate master of her own reality, a being of immense, untraceable power. She is not just a witch in a forest. She is a force of nature, as wild and unpredictable as a hurricane, as quiet and final as the grave. Her appearance is a test. Her home is a test. Her very existence is a test. The iron teeth, the bony leg, the fence of skulls, they are all designed to terrify, to repel the weak, the foolish, and the insincere. But for the rare few who can see past the monstrous facade, who can understand the ancient symbols she embodies, a different possibility emerges. She is not just a destroyer. She is also a giver of immense wisdom and power. But her gifts are never free. The price she demands is absolute, and the questions she asks will strip your soul bare. Because when you finally stand before Baba Yaga, deep in her impossible hut, she will fix her burning eyes on you and ask the one question that truly matters: what is it that you want? Your answer will determine whether your skull becomes another glowing lantern on her fence, or whether you walk out of her forest reborn. So what is the right answer? What could you possibly say to this ancient cannibalistic witch that would spare you from the stew pot? The secret isn't in the words themselves, but in the heart of the one who speaks them. Baba Yaga has no patience for greed, arrogance, or deceit. If you ask for gold, for power, for the love of another against their will, she will see the rot in your soul. She will laugh, a sound like grinding stones, and her iron teeth will be the last thing you ever see. The correct answer, the one that might just save your life, is one born of desperation, of necessity, or of a pure, unselfish quest. You don't come to Baba Yaga for a casual favor. You come to her when all other paths are closed, when the world has pushed you to the very edge of the abyss, and her dark forest is the only place left to go. You must be truthful, you must be respectful, and you must be prepared to work for whatever you seek, because she will not simply give you anything. Oh no, she will test you. She will give you a series of tasks, each one more impossible than the last, designed to shatter your spirit and expose you as unworthy. Perhaps the most famous soul to ever face these trials was a young girl named Vasalisa. Known in the stories as Vasalisa the Beautiful, her tale is the quintessential blueprint for how to survive an encounter with the Witch of the Woods. Vasalisa's mother died when she was just a child, but on her deathbed, she gave her daughter a small wooden doll, with instructions to feed it and care for it, and to consult it whenever she was in trouble. After her mother's death, Vasalisa's father remarried a cruel woman with two equally cruel daughters. They were jealous of Vasalisa's beauty and tormented her endlessly, forcing her to do all the work, hoping to break her spirit and mar her looks with hardship. One evening, the stepmother extinguished every fire in the house and sent Vasalisa into the dark forest. Her task? To go to the dreaded hut of Baba Yaga and fetch a light. It was a death sentence and everyone knew it. But Vasalisa, clutching her little doll in her pocket, had no choice but to obey. Guided by her doll's wisdom, she journeyed through the terrifying woods, past the three spectral horsemen, one white, one red, one black, until she finally reached the clearing with the hut on its chicken legs, surrounded by that gruesome fence of human bones. When the hut spun around to face her, and Baba Yaga herself appeared, demanding to know her purpose, Vasalisa, trembling but resolute, did not ask for wealth or revenge. She simply and honestly stated her quest. "My stepmother sent me to you to ask for a light." This simple, honest answer intrigued Baba Yaga. She saw no greed in the girl, only duty. But that wasn't enough. The test had to begin. First, she told Vasalisa she must stay and work to earn the fire. Her first task was to sweep the yard, cook the supper, wash the linens, and then the impossible part. She was to sort through a massive pile of grain, separating every kernel of wheat from every poppy seed, and removing every speck of dirt. "If you do not finish by the time I return," Baba Yaga snarled, "I will eat you." With that, the witch flew off in her mortar, and Vasalisa was left alone, facing a task that would take a lifetime. Despairing, she fell into tears. But then she remembered her mother's gift. She took out the little doll, fed it a crumb of bread, and told it of her impossible plight. The doll simply replied, "Do not worry, fair Vasalisa. The morning is wiser than the evening. Go to sleep." And so she did. When she awoke the next morning, the doll had completed every single task. The grain was perfectly sorted, the house was clean, the supper was prepared. When Baba Yaga returned, she was stunned. She could find no fault, not a single poppy seed out of place. Annoyed but bound by her own rules, she gave Vasalisa a second set of impossible tasks, this time involving sorting even finer grains and pressing oil from seeds with her bare hands. And again, the magical doll completed the work while Vasalisa slept. On the third day, Baba Yaga, now deeply suspicious, had no more tasks to give. She had seen that some power, greater than her own magic, was aiding the girl. She decided to question her. "How did you manage to do all the work I set for you?" she demanded, her eyes glowing like hot coals. This was perhaps the most dangerous test of all. To lie would mean instant death. To reveal the doll might mean losing its protection. Vasilisa, with a wisdom beyond her years, gave the perfect answer. "I was helped," she said, "by my mother's blessing." The mention of a blessing enraged Baba Yaga. "A blessing!" she shrieked. "We want no one with a blessing here. Get out of my house at once." She could not stomach the presence of such pure, ancestral magic. She was a creature of the wild, untamed world, and the power of a mother's love of familial blessing was anathema to her. But a deal was a deal. Vasilisa had earned her fire. Baba Yaga grabbed one of the skulls from her fence, its eye sockets burning with an unholy flame, and thrust it onto a stick. "Here is your light," she hissed. "Take it and be gone." Vasilisa ran from the hut, back through the dark forest, carrying the terrifying glowing skull. The light it cast was not a warm, comforting flame, but a cold, penetrating fire that seemed to see into the very soul. When she finally arrived home, her stepmother and stepsisters, who had hoped she was long dead, ran out to greet her, their faces masks of false concern. But as soon as the skull's gaze fell upon them, the fire leaped from its sockets. It fixated on the three cruel women, burning brighter and hotter, chasing them as they tried to flee. The flame was a physical manifestation of their own wickedness, a fire of pure justice that could not be extinguished. It burned them until nothing was left but a pile of fine ash. This story reveals the core of Baba Yaga's nature. She is not a simple monster. She is a judge, a gatekeeper. The tasks she sets are not random acts of cruelty. They are a crucible. They are designed to test your patience, your honesty, your resourcefulness, and your spirit. She wants to see if you are worthy of the power you seek. Vasilisa was not just a passive victim. She was resourceful. She used the gift her mother gave her, the doll, which symbolizes her intuition, the wisdom of her ancestors, the deep, feminine power she carried within her. She faced the darkness not with brute force, but with quiet courage, honesty, and a connection to something sacred. Baba Yaga in turn recognized this. She could not defeat it, and she could not abide it, but she was forced to respect the rules of the contract. And the gift she gave, the burning skull, was not just a light. It was an instrument of karmic justice. It destroyed the source of Vasilisa's suffering, freeing her from her tormentors and allowing her to step into a new life. Baba Yaga did not save her. She gave her the tools she needed to save herself. So when you stand before her and she asks what you want, remember Vasilisa. Your request must be pure. Your heart must be true. And you must be prepared to earn your prize through trials that will push you to the brink of your sanity. Because Baba Yaga is the ultimate test. She is the guardian of the threshold between the ordinary world and the world of magic, the divider of the worthy from the unworthy. She is the wild, chaotic force that can either devour you whole, or hand you the very fire you need to burn your old life to the ground and begin anew. And perhaps no story illustrates this terrifying transaction better than that of a young girl named Vasilisa. Her tale is one of the most famous involving Baba Yaga, a story that has been whispered to children for centuries, a warning and a promise all in one. It begins, as so many of these old tales do, with a loss. Vasilisa's mother lay dying, and with her last breath, she called her daughter to her side. She pressed a small wooden doll into Vasilisa's hands. "Listen to my final words," she whispered. "If you are ever lost or in need of help, give this doll a little food and a little drink, and ask for its advice. It will guide you." Soon after, Vasilisa's father remarried a woman who was the classic, cruel stepmother, complete with two daughters of her own who were as sour and spiteful as she was. They were jealous of Vasilisa's beauty, and so they tormented her, forcing her to do all the work, hoping the sun and the wind would wither her looks and the hard labor would break her spirit. But Vasilisa endured it all, with the secret help of her little doll, which she fed and consulted every night in the privacy of her attic room. One autumn evening, the stepmother put out all the fires in the house, leaving only a single flickering candle. She then deliberately snuffed it out, plunging the home into absolute darkness. "What are we to do?" she cried with false despair. "There is no light, and we need to finish our work. One of you must go to our neighbor to borrow some fire." The first stepsister sneered. "Not me, I can see perfectly well with my knitting needles." The second added, "And I won't go, the light from my lace pins is enough for me." And so, with a wicked grin, they all turned to Vasilisa. "You must go," they shrieked. "Go to Baba Yaga's hut in the forest. She will have fire to spare. They shoved her out of the house and into the pitch-black night. This was no errand, it was a death sentence. Everyone knew that Baba Yaga's hut was a place from which no one returned. The forest was deep, dark, and filled with an ancient dread. Every creak of a branch, every rustle of a leaf, sounded like a predator stalking its prey. Vasalisa was paralyzed with fear, but then she remembered her mother's gift. She took out the little doll, gave it a piece of bread and whispered, "What should I do? They are sending me to Baba Yaga, and I know she will eat me." The doll's eyes seemed to glow faintly in the dark. "Do not be afraid," it replied in a tiny voice. "Go where you are sent. Just keep me with you always. With me, no harm will come to you from the witch." And so, with her heart pounding but her resolve strengthened, Vasalisa walked. She crossed herself, bowed in the 4 directions, and stepped into the suffocating darkness of the woods. The path was long, the night endless. Suddenly, a figure on horseback galloped past her. The rider, his face and his clothes were all a brilliant, shining white, and the horse he rode was a milky white stallion. As he passed, the dark of night began to bleed away, and a pale pre-dawn light filtered through the trees. It was daybreak. Vasalisa walked on all through the day, until she came to another clearing. Just as she entered it, a second rider thundered by. This one was dressed entirely in blood red. His face was red, and he rode a magnificent red horse. As he passed, the sun rose high into the sky, its rays cutting through the canopy like golden spears. It was high noon. She continued her journey, deeper and deeper into the primeval forest, a place that felt untouched by human hands. The trees grew so thick that the sky was barely visible. As dusk began to fall, she reached yet another clearing, and this time a third rider galloped past. He was dressed from head to toe in black, his face was black, and he rode a horse as black as a starless night. As he shot past her, the sun vanished, and a profound darkness fell over the forest once more. It was midnight. The 3 riders, day, sun, and night, were Baba Yaga's faithful servants. Vasalisa wasn't just walking into a witch's lair. She was walking into the very heart of time itself. Finally, she came to it. A fence, not of wood or stone, but of human bones, crowned with human skulls whose empty eye sockets stared out into the darkness. The gate was not a gate, but a set of massive jawbones, and the lock was a mouthful of razor-sharp teeth. Behind this gruesome barrier stood the hut. It was perched impossibly on a pair of giant, scaly chicken legs, turning and spinning as if it were alive. Vasalisa froze, her blood turning to ice. As she stood there, the skulls on the fence posts suddenly lit up from within, their eyes blazing with an eerie supernatural fire, illuminating the clearing with a light that was more terrifying than the darkness it held back. Then she heard it, a rumbling in the distance, a sound that shook the very ground. The trees groaned and the leaves trembled. A great wind swept through the clearing, and Baba Yaga appeared. She was not flying on a broomstick, but riding in a giant mortar, steering with the pestle like a rudder, and sweeping away her tracks with a broom made of silver birch. She was a fearsome sight, a woman with a nose so long it grew down into her chin, with iron teeth sharpened to points, and a gaze that could pierce a soul. She ground to a halt before Vasalisa, sniffed the air and screeched, "Fee-fi-fo-fum! I smell a Russian spirit. Who is there?" Vasalisa, trembling, bowed low and said, "It is I, grandmother. My stepsisters have sent me to you to ask for fire." Baba Yaga's eyes narrowed. "I know them," she rasped. "But you cannot simply be given fire. You must stay and work for it first. If you do my bidding, you shall have your fire. If you do not, well, then you will be my dinner." She let Vasalisa into the hut, which was surprisingly spacious inside, though filled with the scent of herbs, earth, and something else, something coppery and unsettling. Baba Yaga ordered her to prepare a feast, bringing food and drink from a cellar that was stocked with enough provisions for a dozen men. The witch ate and drank with a monstrous appetite, leaving Vasalisa only a few scraps. Then she laid out the first day's impossible task. "Tomorrow," she commanded, "you are to clean the yard, sweep the hut, cook the dinner, sort through a bushel of wheat, grain by grain, and separate the good kernels from the blighted ones. And if it is not all done by the time I return, I will eat you." With that, she lay down and began to snore, a sound like a rock slide. Vasalisa was in despair. How could anyone do all that in a single day? She took out her doll, offered it the meager leftovers from her dinner, and began to weep. "What am I to do?" she cried. The doll's bead-like eyes blinked. "Do not worry, Vasalisa the Beautiful," it whispered. "Eat your supper and go to sleep. The morning is wiser than the evening." Vasalisa did as she was told, and when she awoke the next morning, she was astonished to find that all the work had been done. The doll had completed every task while she slept. The wheat was sorted, the yard was clean, the hut was spotless. When Baba Yaga returned that evening, she saw that everything was perfect. She could show no anger but simply grunted, "Good work." She then set an even more difficult task for the next day, involving sorting poppy seeds from a pile of dirt. And again the doll completed the impossible chore. On the third night, after the tasks were again miraculously finished, Baba Yaga seemed almost impressed. She sat before her fire, her iron teeth glinting, and looked at the young girl. Vasalisa, feeling a surge of courage, decided to ask a question. "Grandmother," she said, "may I ask you something? On my way here I saw 3 riders. One was white, one was red, and one was black. Who are they?" Baba Yaga's eyes flashed with a dangerous light. "You ask too many questions," she growled. "But it is good that you ask about what you saw outside the hut and not inside. Too much knowledge withers the old." She leaned in, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial rumble. "The white one is my bright day. The red one is my red Sunday. And the black one is my dark midnight." She paused, letting the immense power of that statement sink in. "They are my faithful servants." Vasalisa fell silent, understanding that she was in the presence of a being far more ancient and powerful than a simple forest witch. She had served a force that commanded the very cycle of existence. Baba Yaga stared at her for a long moment, then said, "Well, you have done your work. Do you have any other questions?" The doll in Vasalisa's pocket suddenly trembled, a silent warning. Vasalisa quickly bowed her head. "No, grandmother. You yourself said that too much knowledge makes one old." "You are wise," Baba Yaga cackled, a sound like grinding stones. "You have earned your reward. You came for fire, and fire you shall have." She went to the fence of bones, plucked one of the skulls from its spike, its eyes still burning with an unquenchable magical flame, and mounted it on a stick. She thrust it into Vasalisa's hands. "Here is your fire," she rasped. "Take it to your stepmother and sisters. It is what they sent you for, after all." The skull's empty sockets stared up at Vasalisa, and the fire within them seemed to pulse with a malevolent, living energy. Vasalisa took the skull, her small hands trembling as they wrapped around the cold, smooth bone. She thanked Baba Yaga, her voice a near whisper, and turned to leave without daring to look back. The path through the dark forest, which had been so terrifying on her way in, was now brightly illuminated. But this was not the warm, comforting light of a hearth fire. This was a cold, dead light, a spectral glow that leached the color from the trees and cast long, skeletal shadows that seemed to claw at her heels. The skull's burning eyes were fixed forward, but Vasalisa felt their gaze on her, through her, as if it were weighing her very soul with every step. She wanted to throw it down, to cast the horrible thing into the undergrowth and run, but she couldn't. A promise was a promise and a task was a task. Besides, this was the fire her stepmother had sent her for. She would deliver it. As she drew closer to her home, she noticed the house was completely dark. Not a single candle flickered in the windows. Her stepfamily must have been unable to borrow any fire from the neighbors, just as they had planned. A grim satisfaction settled in her heart, quickly followed by a pang of dread. What would they do when they saw her? When they saw what she'd brought? She pushed the gate open and walked to the door. Before she could even knock, it was thrown open. Her stepmother stood there, her face a mask of anger and disbelief. "You," she shrieked. "You're alive? Where have you been, you wretched girl? And what is that abomination?" Her 2 daughters crowded behind her, their faces pale and pinched in the ghoulish light of the skull. They had been waiting in the dark, hoping she would never return. They expected her to be a feast for wolves, not to return bearing a source of light. "I have brought the fire you sent me for," Vasalisa said, her voice steady as she held up the skull. The stepsisters recoiled, but the stepmother, driven by greed and a desperate need for light and warmth, reached for it. "Give it here," she commanded. But as her fingers got close, the skull's eyes blazed with sudden ferocious intensity. The fire wasn't contained within the sockets anymore. It was watching them, judging them. The stepmother froze, her hand hovering in the air. A flicker of genuine fear, the first Vasalisa had ever seen, crossed her face. The skull's burning gaze moved from the stepmother to the two daughters cowering behind her. It saw the petty cruelty in their hearts, the jealousy that festered like a disease, the casual malice they had inflicted upon Vasalisa day after day. Saw everything, and then it acted. The fire did not simply leap out. It flowed, a liquid torrent of spectral flame that poured from the skull's empty eyes. It was a fire with a will, a purpose. It ignored Vasalisa completely, as if she were shielded by an invisible wall of innocence. But it washed over her stepfamily. They screamed, but the sound was short-lived. The flames were not hot in the way normal fire is hot. They didn't burn flesh, they burned wickedness. They sought out the rot in their souls and consumed it. The stepmother and her two daughters were turned to cinders in an instant, their bodies collapsing into 3 piles of fine, black ash on the floorboards. The unholy light from the skull faded, and the house was plunged into a profound silence, broken only by the sound of Vasalisa's own ragged breathing. She stood there for a long time, alone in the dark with the 3 piles of ash that were once her tormentors. The skull in her hand was inert now, its eye sockets dark and empty. The terrible magic was spent. Justice, swift and absolute, had been delivered. The next morning, Vasalisa took the skull out into the garden. She dug a deep hole, placed the grim artifact inside, and buried it, wanting to ensure its terrible power could never harm anyone again. She was free. Her ordeal was over. But the story of Baba Yaga was far from finished. The tale of Vasalisa the Beautiful is perhaps the most famous story featuring Baba Yaga, and it paints a very specific picture. The witch is a terrifying but ultimately just arbiter of fate. She is a crucible. Those who approach her with a pure heart, courage, and respect for the old ways like Vasalisa may be rewarded. Those who are cruel, lazy, or dishonest are punished with terrifying finality. But this is just one of her many faces. To truly understand Baba Yaga, we have to look beyond this single story and into the deeper, darker woods of Slavic folklore. She is not simply a fairy tale villain or a magical helper. She is something much older, much more fundamental. Baba Yaga is the personification of the wild, untamable forest itself. In a time when civilization was a tiny, flickering candle in an immense darkness, the forest was everything. It was a source of food and shelter, but it was also a place of mortal danger. It was where you could get lost, where predators lurked, where the known world ended and the unknown began. Baba Yaga embodies this duality. She can provide the magic you need, the fire to light your way, but she might also eat you for dinner. Her very home, the hut on chicken legs, is a symbol of this wildness. It is not a fixed, civilized dwelling. It has no permanent address. It roams the forest at will, turning its back on those it doesn't wish to see. You don't find Baba Yaga, she allows herself to be found. This untamable nature places her outside the bounds of human society and its laws. She is a law unto herself, as primal and unpredictable as a thunderstorm or an earthquake. She is Mother Nature in her crone aspect, not the gentle, nurturing mother, but the harsh, unforgiving force that culls the weak and tests the strong. This role as a primal force of nature is intrinsically linked to her most profound and mysterious function, that of a gatekeeper. Her hut is often described as standing on the very edge of the forest, acting as a bridge between our world and the Inoi Svet, the other world. This isn't just a physical place. It's the realm of the dead, the land of spirits, the thrice-ninth kingdom where the impossible becomes possible. The fence of human bones topped with skulls is not just for decoration or intimidation. It is a literal boundary marker. To pass through that gate is to leave the world of the living behind. This makes Baba Yaga a psychopomp, a figure who guides or ferries souls between worlds, much like Sharon in Greek mythology or Anubis in Egyptian lore. When heroes in Slavic folktales need to rescue a bride from the underworld or find the water of life, they don't go to a king or a wizard. They go to Baba Yaga. She is the only one who knows the way. She holds the keys to life and death. She can offer guidance, but the price is always steep, and the journey is always perilous. She doesn't just open the door. She forces you to prove you are worthy of walking through it. She asks impossible questions, assigns impossible tasks, and tests the hero's wit, courage, and moral fiber. This is because crossing that threshold is not a simple act of travel. It is a transformation, a symbolic death and rebirth. And Baba Yaga is the fearsome midwife of that transformation, ensuring that only those who are truly ready can make the passage. To understand this passage, we must look at the one who made it most famous. We must tell the story of a young girl named Vasalisa. In some tellings, she is called Vasalisa the Beautiful or Vasalisa the Wise. Her story is perhaps the most complete, the most archetypal journey into the domain of Baba Yaga, and it reveals everything about the witch's true purpose. Like many old tales, it begins with loss. Vasalisa's mother is dying. Before she passes, she calls her daughter to her bedside and gives her a small wooden doll. "My blessing is with this doll," she says. "Keep it with you always. Never show it to anyone. When you are in trouble, give it a little food and a little drink and ask its advice." And then she was gone. Vasalisa's father eventually remarried a woman who was the picture of fairy tale cruelty, and she brought with her 2 daughters who were just as mean-spirited and ugly on the inside as they were on the outside. They were jealous of Vasalisa's beauty, so they tormented her, forcing her to do all the work, hoping to wear her down with toil and scorch her skin in the sun. But Vasalisa endured it all. And through it all, she kept the doll hidden in her pocket. At night, when everyone was asleep, she would give it crumbs of bread and a sip of water, and tell it all her sorrows. The doll would comfort her, advise her, and sometimes even help her with her chores while she slept, keeping her safe and strong. One autumn evening, the stepmother put out every fire and every candle in the house, leaving only a single flickering flame. She gave each of the girls a task. One was to knit lace, the other to knit stockings, and Vasalisa was to spin thread. Suddenly, a spark from the candle flew out, and the last flame was extinguished. The house was plunged into total darkness. "What are we to do?" cried the stepsisters. "There's no light to finish our work." The stepmother, with a wicked glint in her eyes you could feel even in the pitch black, said, "One of you must go to our neighbor to borrow a light." "And our neighbor," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "is Baba Yaga." The 2 stepsisters, cruel as they were also cowards. "Not me," they shrieked. "My knitting needles are bright enough for me to see. My stocking needles shine, I can see by their light." They pushed Vasalisa forward. "You must go. You are the spinner. Go to Baba Yaga and fetch us a light." And so they shoved her out of the house, into the deep dark night. The forest was blacker than anything she had ever known. The wind howled through the trees like a hungry wolf. Fear seized her and she almost ran back. But then she remembered the doll. She took it from her pocket, gave it a piece of the bread she had saved, and whispered, "Doll, my little doll, what should I do? They are sending me to Baba Yaga's hut, and I am so afraid she will eat me." The doll's little bead eyes seemed to glow in the dark. It whispered back, "Do not be afraid. Go where you are sent. Keep me with you, and no harm will come to you at the hut of Baba Yaga." So Vasalisa, taking courage from the doll, set off into the woods. The path was dark, but the doll in her pocket seemed to show her the way. Suddenly, a horseman galloped past her. He was dressed all in white, his horse was white, and the horse's tack was white. And as he passed, the dark of night began to fade, and the pale light of dawn broke through the trees. Day had begun. She walked all day, and as dusk began to fall, another horseman galloped past. This one was dressed all in red, on a red horse with red tack. And as he passed, the sun rose high into the sky, brilliant and warm. She continued on, deeper and deeper into the forest, and as night fell once more, a third horseman came. He was dressed all in black, on a black horse with black tack. He galloped past Vasalisa and disappeared into the trees, and at once the world was plunged into absolute darkness again. Night had returned. It was then that she came to a clearing, and in the clearing was a sight that would freeze the blood of the bravest warrior. It was Baba Yaga's hut, standing on its enormous chicken legs, spinning and turning. But it was the fence around it that was the true horror. It was built of human bones, and atop each post was a human skull, and the eye sockets of each skull glowed with an eerie internal fire, lighting the clearing with a dead, terrifying light. The gate was not a gate at all, but a set of massive jawbones with sharp teeth for a lock. Vasalisa was frozen in terror. But then the ground began to shake. The trees groaned and the wind shrieked. A terrible noise filled the air. A grinding, a pounding, a rushing sound. And out of the woods came Baba Yaga herself. She was flying but not on a broomstick. She sat in a giant mortar, a pestle in one hand like a rudder, and a broom in the other, sweeping away her tracks so no one could follow. She flew up to the gate and stopped, sniffing the air with her long iron nose. "Foo! Foo!" she screeched. "I smell a Russian spirit. Who is here?" Vasalisa, trembling, bowed low and said, "It is I, grandmother. My stepsister sent me to you to ask for a light." "Ah," said Baba Yaga, her voice like grinding stones. "I know them very well. But you can't just be given a light. You must work for it first. Stay with me, serve me, and if I am pleased, you shall have your fire. If not," she grinned, showing gums of iron, "then I will eat you for my dinner." She commanded the gate to open, and Vasalisa followed her inside. Once in the hut, Baba Yaga laid out a feast on the table, enough food for 10 men, and ate and drank it all herself, leaving Vasalisa only a crust of bread. "Now," she commanded, "tomorrow you will have your tasks. I want you to sweep the yard, clean the hut, cook the dinner, and when you are done you must go to the granary, take the wheat from my stores, and separate every single good grain from every single blighted one, and sort out all the poppy seeds from the tons of dirt they are mixed with. All of it must be done by the time I return, or you will be my meal." And with that, she lay down and began to snore, the sound rattling the very walls of the hut. Vasalisa was in despair. How could anyone possibly complete such tasks in a single day? She began to weep, but then she remembered her doll. She gave it the crust of bread and told it of the impossible tasks. The doll replied, "Do not worry, Vasalisa the wise. Eat your supper and go to sleep. The morning is wiser than the evening." Vasalisa did as she was told, and when she awoke the next morning, Baba Yaga was already preparing to leave. Vasalisa looked around in astonishment. The doll had done everything. The hut was spotless. The yard was swept. And in the granary were 2 neat piles, one of perfect wheat, and one of blighted grains. Another 2 piles sat beside them, one of clean poppy seeds and one of plain dirt. When Baba Yaga returned that evening, she saw that all the work was done. She was annoyed, but she couldn't find a single fault. She called out to her servants, 3 pairs of disembodied hands that appeared out of thin air, and commanded them to press the oil from the poppy seeds. Then she turned to Vasalisa. "Well," she grunted, "you have done your work, but I am a suspicious old woman." Vasalisa stood silently. She had noticed the disembodied hands, but she said nothing. She had seen horrors, but she kept her composure. This was another test, the test of discretion. Baba Yaga looked at her, her piercing eyes trying to find a flaw. "Is there anything you wish to ask me?" Vasalisa thought for a moment, consulting the doll in her heart. She knew this was the final, most dangerous test. She could ask about the disembodied hands, about the secrets of the hut, but the doll advised her against it. So she said, "I would like to ask grandmother only about what I saw outside. On my way here, I was passed by 3 horsemen. One was white, one was red, and one was black. Who are they?" Baba Yaga cackled, a dry, rattling sound. She was pleased with the question. "A wise question. You do not pry into my home, only into the world outside it. The white one is my bright day. The red one is my red Sunday. And the black one," she grinned, "is my dark night. They are my faithful servants." Then her face grew stern again. "Is there anything else you wish to know?" Vasalisa bowed her head. "No, grandmother. My own mother told me that it is not good to know too much. You grow old before your time." At this, Baba Yaga roared with something that might have been approval. "You are wise indeed. It is good you did not ask about what is inside the hut. I do not like guests who are too curious. I would have eaten you for your prying." And now, the witch declared, "You have earned your fire." She went to the fence, took one of the skulls with burning eyes from its post, and mounted it on a stick. "Here is your light for your stepfamily," she said. "Take it. It is what you came for." Vasalisa took the skull. It was heavy, and the fire in its eyes burned with a cold, otherworldly intensity. She thanked Baba Yaga, and ran from that terrible place, the skull lighting her way through the blackest night, the doll safe in her pocket. When she finally arrived home, she saw there was still no light. Her stepmother and stepsisters rushed out to meet her. Not with relief, but with anger. "Why have you been gone so long?" they demanded. But as they spoke, the eyes of the skull fixed upon them. The fire within them flared, a gaze of pure, unadulterated judgment. The stepmother and her daughters tried to run, to hide, but the light followed them, searing them, pursuing them relentlessly until all three were burned to nothing but a pile of fine black ash. Vasalisa had survived the ultimate trial. She had entered the realm of death, served the chthonic goddess of the forest, and proven herself worthy. She didn't just bring back a simple flame. She brought back a purifying fire, a terrible justice that cleansed her world of its poison. She had been transformed from a victim into a master of her own destiny, armed with a power born in the very heart of the ancient magical world. This power carried in a skull wasn't just a tool. It was a verdict. It was the judgment of the deep woods, of the ancient world, brought into the small, cruel confines of the civilized one. And this reveals one of the most fascinating and terrifying aspects of Baba Yaga. She doesn't just hand out power. She bestows a kind of terrible, clarifying truth. Vasalisa didn't ask for her stepfamily to be destroyed. She just asked for a light. But the light Baba Yaga gave her was one that couldn't coexist with wickedness. It was a flame that burned away lies, cruelty, and injustice, leaving only ashes. This is why we can't simply label Baba Yaga as a villain. She operates on a completely different moral axis. She is less a character and more a fundamental force, a crucible. Those who enter her domain are tested, and what they receive is a direct reflection of what they are. Vasalisa, pure of heart and resilient, received a power that affirmed her nature and liberated her. But what about those who aren't so pure? What about the arrogant, the foolish, the greedy who stumble upon her hut? For them, the story ends much, much faster. Baba Yaga is the ultimate gatekeeper. Her hut, standing on the edge of the world, is a checkpoint. It's the border crossing between the world we know, the world of villages, rules, and society, and the other world, the world of spirits, of ancient magic, of death itself. To pass through, or to take something from that other world, you must first pass her. And her tests are never what you expect. She doesn't challenge you to a sword fight or a battle of spells. Her trials are primal, seemingly impossible, and designed to measure the very essence of your soul. A hero might arrive at her hut seeking the water of life to save a kingdom. He might be brave, strong, a mighty warrior. But Baba Yaga doesn't care about his strength. She'll point to a mountain of wheat and tell him to separate every single grain from the chaff by morning. If he fails, she will eat him. She'll show him a field full of poppy seeds mixed with dirt and command him to sort them, one by one. Fail and he'll be cooked in her oven. These tasks are not about physical prowess. They are about something else entirely. They are tests of patience, of humility, of wit. But most importantly, they are tests of one's relationship with the world. The hero who succeeds is never the one who tries to sort the grains himself. That's impossible. The hero who succeeds is the one who is humble enough to ask for help, who has shown kindness to the world and is thus able to call upon it. Ants will emerge from the earth to sort the poppy seeds. Birds will descend from the sky to separate the wheat. The hero proves his worth not by his own power, but by his harmony with the powers around him. He demonstrates that he understands a fundamental law of the magical world, that everything is connected, and that respect, not dominance, is the key to true strength. Baba Yaga, in this sense, is an agent of cosmic balance. She ensures that the secrets and treasures of the spirit world don't fall into the wrong hands. The arrogant prince who thinks he can command the ants or threaten the birds will find himself utterly alone, staring at an impossible task as the sun begins to set. And for him, the night will not bring help. It will bring only the sharpening of Baba Yaga's teeth. Her fence of skulls with their glowing eyes is a testament to all those who failed the test. It's a warning. Your ego, your pride, your strength in the human world means nothing here. This is a different jurisdiction with older, stricter laws. Think of her as the most terrifying job interviewer in the universe. You come seeking a great prize, wisdom, a magical artifact, the path to your destiny. She looks you over not at your clothes or your weapons but straight into your soul. And then she gives you a series of seemingly mundane and possibly tedious tasks. She wants to see if you'll break. She wants to see if you'll give up, if you'll curse your fate, if you'll try to cheat. She's testing your character under pressure. Will you remain patient? Will you think creatively? Will you be humble enough to accept that you can't do it alone? This is why she is such an enduring and complex figure. She is the monster that might eat you, but she is also the wise woman who holds the key to your salvation. She is a paradox. She embodies the terrifying, untamed wilderness, yet she is the one who determines who is civilized enough in their heart to deserve her help. She is a destructive force, yet she is often the catalyst for a hero's greatest growth. In many tales, she is sought out by a hero who is lost. He needs to find his kidnapped bride, who has been taken by a powerful sorcerer like Ghastly the Deathless. The hero has traveled the world, but no one knows where to find the sorcerer's realm. Who would know? The one who lives on the border of all realms. The one who sees the paths that are hidden to mortal eyes. And so, the hero must journey to the chicken-legged hut. When he arrives, he must know the proper way to address her. He cannot simply knock. He must utter the magical phrase, "Hut of the forest, turn your back to the trees and your front to me." He must show that he understands the rules of her world. Then when she appears and demands to know his purpose, sniffing the air and complaining about the Russian smell of a mortal, he must be respectful but firm. He can't be a coward, but he can't be a fool. He must state his request clearly, and if he passes this initial phase, if he proves he has the courage and the knowledge to even be in her presence, the tests begin. She might demand he guard her maras for 3 days and 3 nights. But these are no ordinary horses. They are magical beasts that will try to escape to the ends of the earth. The hero can only succeed with the help of magical creatures he has been kind to on his journey. A wolf, a falcon, a fish, who help him track the maras across land, air, and sea. Again, the lesson is the same. His success is a reflection of his past deeds. He is worthy not because of who he is in that moment, but because of the sum of his choices leading up to it. Baba Yaga doesn't reward potential. She rewards a proven track record of virtue. And if the hero succeeds in his tasks, her transformation is astonishing. The terrifying, cannibalistic which becomes a surprisingly helpful, if still grumpy, advisor. She will give him the one piece of information he needs. She will tell him where to find Kashiai's death, which is hidden in a needle, inside an egg, inside a duck, inside a hair, inside a chest, buried under an oak tree on a mythical island. She'll give him a magical horse or a ball of yarn that rolls on its own, leading him along the correct path. She gives him the key, the map, the means to complete his quest. But she never ever makes it easy. The price for her knowledge is always a journey into the deepest parts of oneself, a trial by fire that burns away everything but the essential truth of who you are. But this raises an even bigger question. If she is the gatekeeper, who built the gate? What ancient power does she truly serve? Is Baba Yaga a monster? Or is she a goddess in disguise? The answer, buried under 1,000 years of history and religion, is that she might be both. To understand how a monster can also be a goddess, we have to peel back the layers of time, back to an era before the familiar stories of Christianity and Islam swept across Eastern Europe. We have to journey into the misty, primeval world of Slavic paganism. Before the arrival of the cross and the crescent, the Slavic peoples had a rich and complex pantheon of gods and goddesses who governed every aspect of their lives. There was Perun, the thunder god, a figure much like Thor or Zeus. There was Velis, the god of the underworld, cattle, and magic. And there were powerful female deities, goddesses who held dominion over the earth, fate, and the cycles of life and death. Then everything changed. As new religions spread, they didn't just introduce new beliefs. They actively sought to erase the old ones. The most effective way to do this wasn't to simply forbid the worship of the old gods. It was to demonize them, to take a beloved, powerful deity and twist their image into something monstrous and evil. A god of the wild becomes the devil. A goddess of fate becomes a wicked witch. This process, known as demonization, is a historical and religious pattern seen all over the world. And many scholars believe this is exactly what happened to the powerful female deity, who would one day become known as Baba Yaga. She wasn't born a monster. She was demoted. So who was she? Which goddess was so powerful, so fundamental to the old ways, that she had to be transformed into the most terrifying witch in folklore? There are several compelling candidates. One of the most prominent is Mokosh, the Great Mother. Mokosh was a supreme goddess, one of the most important in the entire pantheon. She was the goddess of the earth, of moisture, of fertility, and of fate. She was the protector of women, childbirth, and domestic arts like spinning and weaving. Sound familiar? Spinning and weaving are threads that run through so many of Baba Yaga's tales. She is the one who holds the threads of fate, testing those who come to her, much like the Greek fates or the Norns of Norse mythology. Mokosh, the Earth Mother, lived deep within the moist, fertile earth. Baba Yaga, the crone, lives deep within the damp, ancient forest. It's as if Baba Yaga is the dark, winter aspect of this great earth goddess, the earth when it is not giving life, but taking it back, preparing for rebirth. Another possibility is a figure known as the Zoria, the 2 or 3 guardian goddesses of the dawn and dusk who serve the sun god. In some tales they are tasked with guarding a chained beast, a doomsday hound, that threatens to devour the world. This role as a cosmic guardian, a gatekeeper holding back chaos, aligns perfectly with Baba Yaga's position as the guardian of the border between our world and the other world. She is the eternal sentinel, the one who decides who passes and who is consumed. But perhaps the most compelling theory, the one that sends a shiver down your spine with its perfect chilling fit, is that Baba Yaga is the folk memory of Marzana, or Morana, the Slavic goddess of winter, plague, and death. Marzana was not evil, not in the simple way we think of it. She was a necessary force of nature. She was the embodiment of the harsh, brutal Eastern European winter, a season that didn't just bring snow but starvation and death. She was the frost that killed the crops, the biting wind that froze the unprepared. Her reign was one of darkness and dormancy. Every year, to welcome the return of life, Slavic tribes would perform a ritual at the end of winter. They would create an effigy of Marzana, a straw doll dressed in rags, and they would parade it through the village before ceremonially drowning it in a river or burning it in a bonfire. This wasn't an act of hatred, it was an act of transition. They were symbolically killing winter to allow spring to be born, death making way for life. Now think of Baba Yaga, the bony-legged witch, the crone who brings death. She is the very image of winter incarnate, gaunt, cold, and deadly. Her domain is the deathly stillness of the frozen forest. Her hut, a symbol of the grave. She is the force that must be confronted and survived for the hero or heroine to emerge into the spring of a new life. The tales of Vasalisa the Beautiful or other protagonists aren't just fairy tales. They are echoes of this ancient seasonal ritual. The hero must enter the realm of death, confront its queen, and emerge with the spark of life, the fire, to bring back to the world. This reframes everything. Baba Yaga isn't just a random monster. She is a fundamental part of the cosmic cycle. She is the crone in the ancient archetype of the triple goddess, the maiden, the mother, and the crone. The maiden is spring, new life potential. The mother is summer, fertility, nurturing, and abundance. And the crone is winter, wisdom, endings, and death. Our modern world fears the crone. We are obsessed with youth, with the maiden. We tolerate the mother. But we hide from the crone. We see her as ugly, terrifying, a symbol of decay. But ancient cultures understood her power. The crone was not the end. She was the keeper of wisdom, the one who had lived through the other cycles and understood the whole picture. She was the necessary darkness before the dawn, the fallow field that holds the promise of a future harvest. She holds the keys to death, yes, but therefore also the keys to rebirth. Viewed through this lens, all of Baba Yaga's strange and terrifying attributes transform into sacred symbols of a deposed goddess. Her hut on chicken legs is no longer just a bizarre piece of architecture. It is a temple that stands on the threshold between worlds. It turns to face the visitor because one does not simply walk into the realm of a deity. One must be worthy. One must be granted an audience. Its ability to move signifies that her realm is not fixed in our geography. It exists outside of normal time and space. Her mortar and pestle are not merely tools for grinding up children. The mortar and pestle are among humanity's oldest symbols. The pestle, a phallic symbol of the masculine. The mortar, a vessel, a symbol of the feminine womb. Together, they represent creation, alchemy, and transformation. She isn't just flying. She is riding an ancient engine of cosmic change, grinding down the old and creating the new, sweeping away the traces of the past with her broom. And the fence of bones with its glowing skulls? It is the sacred boundary of her grove. It is the stark, terrifying warning that you are leaving the mortal world and entering a place of immense power. The skulls are not just trophies. They are the lights that illuminate the path into the underworld, a testament to the fate of those who approach the goddess with a false heart or a foolish quest. Her ambiguity, her capacity for both great kindness and horrific cruelty, is not a contradiction. It is the very essence of a primordial nature deity. Is a hurricane evil? Is a volcano a monster? They are forces of immense, impersonal power that can destroy and create. Nature gives life with one hand and takes it with the other. Baba Yaga is the same. She is the wild, untamed spirit of nature itself. She doesn't operate on human morality. She operates on a deeper, more ancient logic of balance, of testing, of cosmic truth. When Christianity came, this raw female power was too wild to be tamed, too fundamental to be ignored. So it was suppressed. The great goddess of life, death, and regeneration was pushed to the fringes, into the deepest, darkest parts of the forest. Her sacred groves became haunted woods. Her wisdom became wicked magic. Her face, once revered as the wise face of the crone, was twisted into the grotesque mask of a cannibalistic hag. She became a story told to frighten children into behaving, but in doing so, her memory was preserved. She survived, not in gilded temples, but in the whispers of grandmothers by the fireside. She is a folk memory, a ghost of a goddess who refuses to be forgotten. She is the wild feminine that patriarchy and organized religion tried, and failed, to completely erase. Her power was simply too great. It seeped through the cracks of the New World Order, bubbling up in fairy tales and folklore, a constant, chilling reminder of the old ways and the ancient powers that still sleep just beyond the edge of our manicured world. Baba Yaga is the ultimate survivor. She outlasted the gods she once stood beside. She endured centuries of being called a monster, and in the modern era, she has found a new way to thrive. This ancient, powerful figure, this deposed goddess of the Slavic forests, has made the impossible leap from the deep woods of folklore into the bright, flickering screens of our global popular culture. And it is a truly bizarre journey. Think about it. How does a figure born from the mists of pre-Christian Europe, a crone who lives in a hut on chicken legs and eats human bones, become a recognizable character in a 21st century blockbuster? How does this embodiment of the wild, untamable forest survive in a world of concrete, steel, and Wi-Fi? The answer is that she adapts. She mutates. She allows herself to be reinterpreted, but always on her own terms. Her most direct translation into modern media is, unsurprisingly, as the monster. This is Baba Yaga at her most visceral, her most folklorically accurate, and her most terrifying. Look no further than the pages of Mike Mignola's Hellboy comics and its film adaptations. Here she is a nightmare given form, a skeletal witch with iron teeth, nesting in a mortar and pestle, surrounded by the ghosts of those she's devoured. She is a primeval force of evil, a major antagonist whose power rivals that of demons and gods. In this version, there is no ambiguity. There is no bargain to be struck, no wisdom to be gained. She is the monster in the woods, the thing you run from, the ultimate cautionary tale. She is rage, hunger, and decay. This is the Baba Yaga that our modern stories of good versus evil are most comfortable with. She's a boss battle, a creature to be vanquished. We see this version in video games too. In The Witcher 3, the crones of Crookback Bog are a clear and horrifying homage to Baba Yaga, a trio of ancient, child-eating sisters who embody the darkest aspects of her legend. In the Rise of the Tomb Raider DLC, Lara Croft faces off against Baba Yaga in a hallucinatory, terrifying sequence. In these contexts, she is the obstacle, the grotesque challenge, the gatekeeper who must be defeated to proceed. And this makes sense. Our modern heroic narratives often require a clear, definable villain. And who makes a better villain than a 1,000-year-old witch who lives in a graveyard and flies in a cauldron? This is Baba Yaga flattened, simplified for a mass audience. They take her most fearsome attributes, her cannibalism, her connection to death, her terrifying appearance, and dial them up to 11, while conveniently leaving her more complex, nuanced aspects on the forest floor. But that is not the only way she haunts our modern world. Because the most fascinating thing about Baba Yaga isn't her evil, it's her power. And power is something our culture is obsessed with, which brings us to a very different kind of adaptation. It brings us to the world of assassins, tailored suits, and a man named John Wick. In the John Wick universe, the protagonist isn't just a legendary hitman. He is given a nickname, a title spoken in hushed, fearful tones by the most dangerous people in the world. They don't call him the devil, they call him Baba Yaga. Now, this is, on the surface, a complete misunderstanding of the folklore. Baba Yaga isn't the Slavic boogeyman. You sin to kill other boogeymen. She is something far stranger, far more ancient. But the filmmakers understood something crucial. They understood the weight of her name. The name itself carries an aura of unstoppable supernatural force. John Wick isn't a witch. He doesn't live in a chicken-legged hut, but he embodies her essence in a different way. He is the personification of will, of consequence, of a force of nature that, once unleashed, cannot be stopped. When the mob boss Viggo Tarasov learns his son has crossed John Wick, he doesn't just say, "He's a good assassin." He tells the story of Baba Yaga. He uses her name to evoke a power that transcends mere skill. It's a power that feels folkloric, mythical. In this context, Baba Yaga is no longer a specific character. She has become an archetype, a symbol for ultimate, inescapable retribution. This is a brilliant mutation. It shows how Baba Yaga's spirit can be divorced from her literal form. Her name alone is a spell, a shorthand for a power so profound it borders on the supernatural. She has become a metaphor, and this metaphorical power is where she finds her most potent and revolutionary modern form. Because in recent years, a new interpretation has risen from the ashes of the old tales, one that sees her not as a monster to be slain, or a metaphor for a male anti-hero, but as something else entirely. Something to be understood, something to be reclaimed. In a wave of contemporary fantasy literature, particularly works by female authors, Baba Yaga is undergoing a radical transformation. She is being re-examined, not as a fairy tale villain, but as a feminist icon. Consider books like Catherine Arden's Winter Night trilogy. Here, the protagonist, Vajya, has a relationship with the folklore figures of her world. Baba Yaga, while still dangerous and unpredictable, is not a simple monster. She is a source of wild, untamed magic. She is a mentor of a sort, a keeper of old ways in a world that is trying to stamp them out. She represents a choice, to conform to the rules of men and their new god, or to embrace the older, wilder, and more dangerous magic of the forest. She is a symbol of female power that exists outside of patriarchal control. She is not a wife, not a mother in the traditional sense. She answers to no man, no king, and no priest. She is entirely, terrifyingly, her own. This reinterpretation argues that perhaps the old stories got her wrong, or, more accurately, that they were told by people who were afraid of her. Afraid of a woman with knowledge, a woman with power, a woman who lived by her own rules. In this new light, her hut on chicken legs isn't just a whimsical detail. It's a home that can't be tied down, a symbol of freedom. Her terrifying tests aren't random cruelty. They are initiations, designed to see if you are worthy of the knowledge she holds. She is no longer just the devourer of the young. She is the harsh but necessary teacher, the gatekeeper to a deeper understanding of the world and oneself. This version of Baba Yaga resonates powerfully in the 21st century. She is the ultimate outsider, the crone who has seen it all and has no time for foolishness. She is the embodiment of the wisdom that comes with age, a wisdom society often discards. She is the fierce protector of the natural world against the encroachments of man. She is the woman who says no. In an age where women are reclaiming their narratives and challenging old power structures, Baba Yaga has become an unlikely but potent symbol of untamed, unapologetic female strength. So which is she? The cackling monster from Hellboy? The metaphorical force of nature from John Wick? The reclaimed feminist icon from modern fantasy? The truth is, she is all of them, and she is none of them. Each adaptation is like a shard of a broken mirror, reflecting one facet of her infinitely complex character. The horror adaptations reflect our fear of the unknown, of death, of the wild. The action hero metaphor reflects our fascination with ultimate power and consequence. The feminist reclamation reflects our modern desire to find strength in the figures that history has tried to demonize. What this really shows is that Baba Yaga is not a relic of the past. She is a living, breathing story. She is a myth that refuses to die because we still need her. We still need a figure who embodies the unpredictable chaos of nature. We still need a gatekeeper who forces us to prove our worth. And perhaps now more than ever, we need a figure who reminds us that there is power in the wild, wisdom in the old, and strength in the women who dare to live outside the lines. She has successfully navigated the transition from the oral traditions of the Slavic world into the global consciousness, not by staying the same, but by proving she can be whatever each new generation needs her to be. A monster, a symbol, a hero. But as we cast her in our new stories, projecting our own fears and desires onto her ancient form, a chilling question arises. Have we truly captured her? Or has she once again simply found a new forest to hunt in the digital woods of our own minds? And is it possible that the stories are no longer about a hero going to her hut, but about her coming for us? The answer in a way is yes. She has been coming for us all along. She was never confined to the birch forests of Eastern Europe. Her domain is any place where the path ends and the unknown begins. And today that unknown is vast. It's the endless scroll, the algorithmic forest where we wander, seeking knowledge or distraction or connection. Each click is a step deeper into the woods. Each viral challenge a test. Each piece of misinformation a trick of the woodsman. In this new wilderness, Baba Yaga has found fertile ground. She thrives on ambiguity, on the blurring line between helper and destroyer. Consider the most famous modern invocation of her name, John Wick. He is the man you send to kill the boogeyman. He is called Baba Yaga, but this is a fascinating and telling mistranslation. In the films, it's used as a synonym for a terrifying, unstoppable killer. And while she is certainly that, it misses the entire point. It strips away her magic, her role as a gatekeeper, and reduces her to mere monstrous violence. The movie flattens her into a simple boogeyman, but in doing so, it reveals our modern hunger for such figures. We crave stories of elemental forces that cannot be reasoned with, forces that represent a reckoning. John Wick isn't a witch in a hut, but he embodies her function as an agent of brutal, unavoidable consequence. He is what happens when you disturb the natural order, when you kill the wrong man's dog. He is the violent answer to a foolish question. But her shadow stretches far beyond a single action hero. Look at the world of video games. How many quests begin with the hero seeking a powerful, morally gray figure in a remote, dangerous location? A figure who will only help after a series of bizarre, often deadly trials? From the enigmatic witches in the Witcher series who demand a price for their knowledge, to the strange hermits in The Legend of Zelda, who offer cryptic advice from their caves and huts. This is the Baba Yaga narrative structure, reskinned for a digital age. The player becomes Vasalisa, stepping into the dark woods of the game world, pushing through hostile territory to reach that one crucial encounter. The boss battle is the final test. The reward, the magic sword, the key, the piece of lore, is the gift she bestows upon the worthy. We are playing out her stories over and over without even realizing it. We are willingly stepping up to her door and asking to be tested. Psychologically, her persistence is even more profound. The great psychoanalyst Carl Jung spoke of archetypes, universal patterns and images that are part of our collective unconscious. Baba Yaga is a perfect, terrifying embodiment of the crone archetype and the terrible mother. She is the dark side of the feminine principle, not the nurturing, life-giving mother, but the devouring, consuming one. She represents the unforgiving, chaotic side of nature itself, the blizzard, the flood, the forest fire, the side that takes without asking and gives no reason why. She is the mother who pushes the fledgling from the nest, knowing it might fall. She is the incarnation of the terrifying truth that growth requires destruction. To become something new, something old within you must be metaphorically eaten, calcined in her oven and reborn. Facing her is a confrontation with our own shadow self, the parts of us we fear and repress. The hero who enters her hut isn't just facing a witch. They are facing a mirror that reflects their own courage, their own cunning, and their own capacity for darkness. Her questions are never simple. They are designed to probe the soul. Are you here of your own free will or by compulsion? This is not small talk. This is the fundamental question of existence. Are you the master of your fate, or are you a victim of circumstance? Your answer and your actions determine whether you are feasted upon or gifted with magic. In more recent years, a new interpretation has taken root, one that sees Baba Yaga not as a monster, but as a symbol of radical, untamed female power. In a world historically structured by patriarchal rules, she exists entirely outside of them. She is not a wife, a mother, or a daughter in any conventional sense. She is beholden to no king, no priest, and no man. Her power is her own, derived from nature, from ancient wisdom, and from her own terrifying will. She is the wild woman, the one who refuses to be tamed, to be civilized, to be made beautiful and compliant. Her ugliness, her iron teeth, her bony leg. These aren't just monstrous traits. They are a rejection of the male gaze. a refusal to be judged by conventional standards of beauty and worth. She is powerful because she is hideous. Her cannibalism can be seen as a metaphor for her consumption of old ideas and weak souls, absorbing their strength and discarding the rest. She is a figure of immense, terrifying freedom. The freedom to be solitary, to be wise, to be dangerous, and to answer to no one but herself. In this light, she becomes an icon for those who live on the fringes, those who refuse to conform. She is the patron saint of the outcast, the rebel, the woman who has been called a witch one too many times and has decided to finally embrace it. So why, after all these centuries, do we keep telling her story? Why does the sound of a mortar and pestle pounding through the forest still send a shiver down our spine? Because the story of Baba Yaga is the story of a fundamental human experience. The journey into the unknown to find ourselves. We all have a dark forest we must enter. It might be a new career, a difficult relationship, a personal crisis, or a profound loss. It is any situation where the map runs out and we are forced to rely on our own wits, our own courage, our own integrity. In the heart of that darkness there is always a hut, a moment of truth, a crucible where we are tested. And in that hut there is a Baba Yaga. She is the challenge that seems impossible, the question that seems unanswerable, the force that threatens to consume us entirely. She is the gatekeeper to the next stage of our own lives. She holds the key, the fire, the wisdom we seek. But she will never, ever just give it to us. It must be earned. It must be won. Baba Yaga is not a relic of a superstitious past. She is a living, breathing part of our psychological landscape. She is the embodiment of the world's terrifying indifference, but also its capacity for profound transformation. She teaches us that wisdom is not found in safe, well-lit places. It is found in the dark, in the dirt, among the bones. She teaches us that true strength is not about avoiding the monsters, but about walking right up to their door, looking them in the eye, and proving you are worthy. The old tales were never just warnings to keep children out of the woods. They were a guide for how to survive it. They were a promise that if you are pure of heart, clever of mind, and brave of soul, you can face down the greatest terrors and emerge, not just alive but enlightened. The hut on chicken legs still stands. It spins in the clearing at the edge of what you know. And the question is no longer where to find it, but what you will do when it finds you.